The Moon by Seymour Simon. The Moon is Earth's closest neighbor in space. It is about 1/4 of a million miles away. In space, that is very close. The Moon travels around Earth. It is Earth's only natural satellite. A satellite is an object that travels around another object. The Moon takes about 27 days and 8 hours to go around the Earth once. The Moon is so close to the Earth that you can easily see light and dark on its surface. This photograph of the Moon was taken through a telescope on Earth. The light places are mostly mountains and hills. The dark places are flatlands. The Moon has thousands of craters covering its surface. Craters are ring-shaped flatlands with walls around them. A few craters on the Moon are more than 50 miles wide, but most are smaller. Many of the craters are only a few feet wide. The Moon is made of rock. We can see only part of the Moon lit by sunlight. Sometimes we see the full Moon. Other times we see a thin sliver. Every night the Moon looks a little different. Each different shape is called a phase of the Moon. The phases go from all dark, which is the new moon, through full moon, and back to new moon in about 29 days. We call the phase in this photograph a crescent moon. From earliest times, people gazed up at the moon and wondered about it. Were there living things on the moon? Would we ever be able to travel to the moon? In 1961, the United States government decided to try to send a person to the moon within 10 years. The space program was named Apollo. This photograph, taken from the Apollo 11 Columbia spacecraft, shows the lunar landing ship Eagle. It is on its way back from the surface of the moon. The surface of the moon is visible 60 miles below the spacecraft. A partly lit Earth hangs above the moon's horizon. On July 20th, 1969, Neil Armstrong became the first person to set foot on the moon. Armstrong was one of the astronauts on the Apollo 11 flight to the moon. He was followed shortly by Edwin Aldrin, another member of the United States Apollo 11 spaceflight. This is a photograph of astronaut Aldrin standing on the moon. The face mask on his spacesuit reflects astronaut Armstrong. This footprint on the moon marks the first time that human beings have walked on ground that was not Earth. The footprint may last for 1,000,000 years or longer. That is because there is no air on the moon, and without air there can be no winds to blow dust around. The astronauts discovered that the moon is a silent, strange place. The moon has no air. Air carries sound. So with no air, the moon is completely silent. Even when the astronauts broke rocks or used the rockets on their spaceship, sound could not be heard. The sky on the moon is always black. On Earth, we can see stars only at night. On the moon, stars shine all the time. The moon does not have air, water, clouds, rain, or snow. It does not have weather. But the surface of the moon does warm up and cool off. The ground gets very hot or very cold because there is no air to spread the heat. The temperature in the daytime can be above the boiling point of water. At night, the temperature can drop hundreds of degrees below zero. The astronaut spacesuits kept their bodies at the right temperature. The astronauts carried tanks on their backs that contained the air they needed for breathing. Each Apollo crew brought back more information about the moon. Scientists all over the world studied the information the astronauts brought back. They learned that the moon is about the same age as Earth, but the moon's soil and rocks are different from Earth's. For instance, moon rocks contain no water at all, while almost all rocks on Earth contain a small amount of water. Apollo 17 was the last spaceship to carry people to the moon. It was launched in December 1972. The astronauts of Apollo 17 discovered the oldest rock ever found on the moon. Before the astronauts returned to Earth, they left a plaque on the moon showing the history of moon travel. Earth and its moon are close in space, but very different from each other. Earth is a blue, cloud-covered planet filled with living things. The moon is a dead world. Without air or water, a cloud can never appear in its black sky, and a raindrop will never fall. Thank you for listening to The Moon by Seymour Simon.